Good morning, everyone. We're just waiting for a couple more people to come through the gate. So we just bear with us for a couple more minutes, and then we'll get the webinar underway very shortly. Thanks for your patience. All right, everyone. Hi, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Alex Paul from InvestorStream, and I'll be your host this morning. Today we have AnteoTech Limited Chief Executive Officer Derek Thompson, who will be providing us with an update on the company's energy operations. Following the presentation, Derek and AnteoTech Head of Energy, Manuel Weezer, will address any questions you may have. We'll be attempting to get through as many questions as time permits. Please feel free to send in your questions via the chat platform. In the question pane in the GoToWebinar control panel, you can also simply email them to me, alex@investorstream.com.au. We've already had quite a wide range of questions come through, so thank you very much for all those who have sent them through, and please keep them coming. We'll try and get to as many as we can today. To follow along with the presentation, you can also download a copy of the presentation by navigating to the handouts pane in the control panel. A copy of the webinar will also be available on the AnteoTech website and their social media platforms later today. But for now, I'd like to throw it over to Derek and Manuel, who are going to get us underway. Derek, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Alex. Well, as global populations are growing at an unprecedented rate, many major economies in the world are industrializing faster than ever before. Society is becoming more affluent, and the demand for resources that enhance our way of life is increasing. Antiquated systems for generation of power are being stretched to the limit. Power generation techniques that utilize fossil fuels are producing more pollution that adds to the rate of global warming. The world needs efficient methods to produce, store, and deploy energy to meet growing global demand and to stop pollution. The quest for innovation to produce solutions that will enable the world to harness energy safely, cleanly, and cheaply is in full swing. With an objective to utilize our skill and our technology to contribute solutions that meet the global challenges of our time, AnteoTech has embarked on a program now in full swing and running to enhance the energy efficiency of the lithium-ion battery, an energy storage tool that is widely used across industry for many different applications, but prevalently including the transport industry, which has grown quite dramatically over the last few years. In taking up this challenge, we have harnessed the unique qualities of our technology to produce solutions that align to societal need for energy innovation, and in so doing, entered one of the fastest growing industrial markets in the world today. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for this opportunity again to address you. We know that there's quite a large number of people attending this webinar, and many of those people are long-term supporters of AnteoTech. And again, we say hello to you and reach out to you. And we're especially buoyed to see our friends in Victoria at this time who are enjoying some freedoms. So we say hello to all our Victorian shareholders as well. Today we'll be running through a brief overview and update of the energy program, and as Alex mentioned, we'll be taking some questions along the way. I'm here with the head of our energy division, Manuel Weezer. Welcome, Manuel.
Hello.
And together we'll be running you through the slides that are in the deck, and again taking some questions. So let's get underway. So The first slide that we have is our famous disclaimer slide, and it's there because we are presenting this presentation as an update of our operations, and in no way is it to be taken as a recommendation on the stock at all. It's simply an overview of the operations and where we are with those operations at a point in time, which is now. Thanks, Manuel. So the first slide that we want to walk you through is an overview of our energy program against value, return and time complexity. I'm going to ask Manuel to walk through the elements of the program in a moment. But from a commercialisation perspective, our objective with the energy program is to produce a anode or a working anode that contributes to the lithium-ion battery, that produces a cheaper lithium-ion battery, a smaller lithium-ion battery, and a lighter lithium-ion battery. The components as portrayed there are all elements to achieve that objective. From a commercialisation perspective, our approach has been to run programs of work that produce these components individually and then bring them together in a silicon anode system at the end. Along the way, we have the opportunity to commercialise the individual elements into the component manufacturing of a silicon-based anode, and that is our objective. For example, the first element of our program is the cross-linker additive, which we've been working on diligently in the last year or so, and we believe that is the short-term opportunity for us to commercialise. In other words, bring the silicon cross-linker additive to the market to combine with other organisations' binder to create a useful proposition for the market as it stands today. And we will do that across the entire program where we can. Manuel, perhaps you can walk us through that program and give us some highlights of our development so far.
Yes, of course. So what you see here is our commercialization roadmap that we have been refining over the past year to help the industry meet their future energy targets and cost targets. It also explains our differentiator, Entiotech's differentiator, in more detail, being able to supply low-cost solutions at various points throughout the whole silicon anode value chain. So as Derek already mentioned, we have been gathering a lot of interest, substantial interest in our cross-link additive approach, which is currently being evaluated by a whole set of collaborators in extensive testing. And we also consequently think that this will be the first product to market out of this series of products. So the cross-linker additive itself is the first step in creating an advanced binder solution, although this particular product we envision to be used with already existing or proprietary binder systems in the market. So we're basically pairing this cross-linker additive with our partners' binders. Whereas after that, we are planning to move up the value chain and evaluate the case for a Entiotech-based advanced binder system that we then would be distributing or manufacturing with specific partners. Moving on from that, we are continuing to develop our silicon active material range of products, specifically the silicon composite material, which we would see as a third product, all the way up to a integrated silicon anode system, which we see as our first product category, which we most likely license, which is very critical. And as Derek mentioned already, the effort here would be on bringing all of these individual components together into an anode system, being able to deliver more than 1,000 million pounds per gram of coating capacity. So this is quite an ambitious target, especially given that conventional graphite anodes today achieve about 350 million pounds per gram. This is already an almost 3 times boost in specific capacity, with the more advanced anodes these days delivering 400 to 500 million pounds per gram.
Right, thanks, Manuel. Now, our approach, as Manuel mentioned, is to go to market with our development program under a collaboration strategy. Now, we've been doing that for the last few years, and as people who have known the company for a while, we originally started off with 3 collaborators, and earlier this year, Manuel and I got on planes to try and expand that as much as we possibly could, and we were very successful at doing that. and we expanded the collaboration network to 9 collaborators. As of today, we have 9 collaborators that are currently working with us and working with us well. Now, a couple of comments about the collaboration approach that we've undertaken that are relevant today. The unfortunate reality is that COVID-19 has affected most of our collaborators quite dramatically. That they're all 9 of them are in places in the world that are heavily affected by COVID-19. And so we have witnessed a slowdown in activity from all our collaborators because of COVID-19. In stark contrast to the life sciences business, it has affected us adversely on this side of the business. And so we have been working diligently with these collaborators, but we haven't got the rapid results that we originally wanted. For example, collaborator 1 and 3 were our primary ones, and their testing results came out much later than we originally anticipated. Our program was stemmed from collaborator 1 and 3, and we used the results of that original program to feed into the other collaborators and push on with the work that we're doing with them to test and modify our products. And that program of work is going on right now. So we have a very active program of work with all the collaborators putting together testing protocols, and we are shipping materials amongst the collaboration network quite proactively, and our program is in full swing. On Friday, we reported in our quarterly the results of some of those. We reported the elements of the collaboration program that had results and were worth updating the market on, but we didn't go through every single collaborator because, quite frankly, there was a lot there where we're just either putting together protocols or we're shipping the materials. But rest assured that the program is ongoing, and we have 9 active collaborators currently in our portfolio. Recently, we've had some new events. All our collaboration network, the 9 that we have been what I call outbound. In other words, we went out to them originally and we procured discussion and procured the collaboration. But recently we've had our first inbound, and we're currently working with a new collaborator, which we think will be collaborator 10, and that's an organisation that approached us. We're working through how that collaboration will work, and we'll make announcements on that accordingly. But it's a good event. For the first time, the market is starting to come to us. So we're quite interested and excited about that potential, and we'll make announcements on that in due course. Thank you. Let's now take a look at the market outlook slide that we wanted to present. And I'm going to ask Manuel to comment on the silicon elements of this slide in a moment. But the thing that I take away from this slide is the rate of growth in the market. On the left-hand side is a portrayal of the predicted revenues for just the EV portion of the market going forward from a report that we get regularly from Avicen, and this is the 2020 version of that report. We half expected to see the 2020 version with a slight flattening of the forecast of the market growth, but in fact it has gone the reverse. It is still increasing at a higher rate. So the forecast for the market is getting quite large across the board, and that the rate of growth is still increasing in terms of its forecast. So we're quite buoyed by the fact that our predicted business case when we started this program of work is actually starting to come to fruition in terms of addressable market going forward. And again, the figure on the left is just the EV portion, the electric vehicle portion, not the entire market. We'll present some numbers later, perhaps in the AGM, about the entire market. But the message is still acceleration. On the right-hand side is some numbers that, again, quite interesting around the use of silicon in the market. Perhaps, Manuel, you can comment on those.
Yes, of course. So not only is the market for lithium-ion batteries growing quite rapidly, the market for active material is growing and changing from the conventional active material graphite, which is usually categorized in natural and artificial graphite, all the way to silicon materials. So this Avicen report from 2020 projected that in 2020, 3% of the active material market were silicon materials, whereas this figure is expected to quadruple over the next decade, reaching 12% in 2030. And it's not going to stop there. Using graphite as an example, graphite has been around ever since 1990. The 1990s, where Sony first commercialized today's version of a lithium-ion battery. And graphite has been around for the last 30 years. And we would expect a similar trend to occur for silicon-related materials. So not only is the market for silicon materials growing, also the market for silicon-enabling technologies will be growing. So these two pie charts here only represent the silicon or the active material market, when really the market for silicon-enabling technology is actually much larger. Now, what this means for AnteoTech is that we are very well positioned to participate in this growing market right at the onset and capitalize on the use of our technologies in this market.
Excellent, thank you. So now let's turn our attention to some of the results that we're getting. And again, just turning back to our portrayal of the commercialization roadmap that we showed in the first slide. This is some results that relate to the crosslinker additive. It's the additive that we can feed into the market to combine with existing organisations' binders to create a binder that has a cross-linking effect that should, at least in theory, improve the energy efficiency of the anode. So these are results portrayed here of one of our collaborators, large collaborator that has a binder product that services the entire lithium-ion battery market. So they've got a very broad footprint and an established binder in that market. And we have taken that product and added our cross-linking additive to it and tested it in our own lab from an electrochemical performance perspective. Now, a good result would have been a couple of percentage points lift. In fact, we're seeing a 21% lift in electrochemical performance. Now, that is a very, very good result for our cross-linker additive on this product, and we're quite encouraged by it. And we will be having some discussions with this organisation about this result very, very soon. And it looks like it has potential to really enhance that product in the market. Manuel, you've got a few technical aspects of this that you can comment on.
Yes, so in this case, this was one of the first examples where a collaborator provided us with a sample of their existing advanced binder product, which in this case is a PAA or polyacrylic acid type derivative binder for the use with silicon-containing anodes. And the objective of this evaluation was to pair this proprietary binder system, which is a commercial product, with our cross-linker additive and to evaluate the test results or the electrochemistry out of this binder cross-linker additive couple. And what we found is that by pairing these two components, we are able to achieve an up to 9% higher starting capacity of the silicon anode and up to 20%, 21% actually, higher capacity at cycle 100, which was a very good result. We also used a very difficult test system for this approach, containing 70% microsilicon. And what this does is it expands a lot, up to 300%, placing a lot of stress on this anode coating and the anode as a whole, which is exactly what you want when you want to try to evaluate new and advanced binder systems. And we were able to create this, this beautiful result.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on then. And so moving on to the active material space, one of our main programs of work has been around the development of a silicon composite. Now, in the active material space, there's several attributes that we've attempted to adhere or have success in, and we've had success in raising the energy density of our active material in a silicon composite. We got results back from collaborators 1 and 3 about that. So that was a very successful program of work for our generation 1 silicon composite. The next piece or the next challenge that we are undertaking is to try and control the expansion of the silicon within that silicon composite, and therefore improve the cycling stability. Now, this is a problem that has beset the entire industry, the problem of silicon expanding and therefore lowering the cycle stability of the anode. But we've progressed quite well in this area, and we're starting to see some really good results. Perhaps, Manuel, you can talk us through the process and what we're achieving there.
So this slide shows our progression and our trajectory for our silicon composite development. So just to recap on the silicon composite and its purpose, it is an active material. It is actively storing lithium ions and charge in the anode. The objective is to drive up this charge storage capacity of the anode or these materials as high as possible, eventually leading to an anode capacity containing or being able to store more than 1,000 million pounds per gram of anode coating. Now, for silicon does expand and expands a lot, which creates a lot of issues and is responsible for the degradation of silicon during ongoing charge and discharge cycling. And so this expansion needs to be managed, including the flow-on effects, which are excessive SEI layer formation and electrolyte degradation on the surface of these materials. And so to resolve this challenge, initially we resorted to nanosilicon, and nanosilicon needs to be integrated into the anode in sophisticated ways because it is a very small particle, has a high surface area and low density. And this is exactly what we're aiming to achieve with our first generation of silicon composite material, where we looked at processing of nanosilicon into these larger structures and the integration of silicon into the anode coating, but also to demonstrate that we can deliver very high capacities with these materials. And the anode integration aspect was already confirmed by our partners, as we already discussed in the quarterly report that came out last week. So to take the performance of these composite materials further, we have embarked on creating a second generation silicon composite material, where we are focusing quite heavily on making these materials usable in full cells by revisiting the structure and the porosity and the composition, and to balance out the higher surface area of the nanomaterials with surface coatings, all of which will help to control volume expansion, create higher improved coulombic efficiency, and consequently good cycling stability, which will then make these materials deployable in full cells, which is another term for the batteries or commercial batteries that are used in consumer electronics like phones or electric vehicle battery applications today.
Excellent, thank you. So again, just turning back to the market again, and this time from a different perspective. We have been quite proud of the fact that we can pivot the organisation towards opportunity when it occurs, and we're in two very dynamic markets, life sciences and energy. And in the life sciences market, of course, we pivoted very quickly towards COVID-19 and are working on there. At the same time, we've been watching and analysing what's happening in the energy market, and there's elements of the energy market that are altering as well. Viewers may have seen a few presentations that have been out there, one in particular from Tesla, about their thoughts on their direction of how the market is going to go and their position in it. Other large organisations have presented their positions around their progression forward in the market and what they're going to do. And we must analyse this very carefully, because we must align our program of work as much as we possibly can to where the market is heading, and we're doing that. So this slide is an overall summary slide of what we believe are the current trends or the current trends for future participation in the market by the larger players such as Tesla and the vehicle manufacturers and the larger anode and battery producers in the world, and what they will probably, or what we know that they're going to focus on. So Manuel, can you walk us through what those elements are, please?
So over the past few months, we did see a few dynamics evolving, and the first dynamic is that there is an extremely or enormous focus on cost reduction within the battery industry. And there always has been a very strong focus towards cost reduction, but companies and investors alike seem to be willing to go to great length now to force this cost reduction even further. And great examples of this happening in industry are companies like Tesla or Northvolt, which have started to vertically integrate quite heavily and consolidate their supply chains in an attempt to reduce the cost of the batteries further, but also in an effort to reduce their carbon footprint and reduce their reliance on Chinese or Asian suppliers in this case. The second dynamic is that the role of silicon is evolving quite rapidly from an additive to a main component, or the star of the anode, so to say. And we've seen a trend where microsilicon, so this really means that there's a trend emerging where companies are focused on microsilicon or silicon dominant electrodes. So in this case, not necessarily using graphite anymore to store the charge in the anode. And to really realize a system like this, the silicon component needs to be low cost. More importantly, it needs to produce very stable performance over hundreds or thousands of charge and discharge cycles. And to achieve this, you need to manage the expansion of the system at an active material level, which is what we're addressing with our silicon composites, or the anode level, and also the cell level. And this is where the whole anode design becomes really important, because all the components within the anode coating need to come together, need to work together to provide for a well-performing system. And so this system design approach has been, I think, for a while, which is also now reflected in our commercialization roadmap.
Great, thank you. And so in terms of our own future strategy and direction, as I mentioned before, we analyze the market and how we approach the market in terms of the direction that these large organizations are taking, and the elements that Manuel just walked us through are our current point of view of where the market looks to be heading. And so it's quite a very complex set of technologies that need to come to play to fulfill that market. And obviously we've been working in many areas, as we've portrayed to you today, to bring a better anode to the market, more energy efficient anode to the market, and therefore fulfill that market. But taking the complexity away and just coming back straight to our core technologies and competencies, we have been doing some work around, how would we harness our core competency and technologies in an environment where there's a pivot towards different aspects of producing a solution that fulfills what the market needs are. And this slide is a portrayal of how that could work and what our potential involvement in terms of our core technologies and core competency could be. Manuel, again, a technical perspective, could you walk us through and help us understand? Thank you.
Okay, so as we already mentioned on the last slide, we do see this new trend emerging where companies are focusing on silicon dominant electrodes. And one particular example was Tesla's Battery Day presentation, where Tesla announced that they are focusing on metallurgical grade microsilicon. The reason for that being is that this material, or microsilicon itself, is very inexpensive material compared to some other silicon approaches that are out there. Now, this microsilicon still needs to be modified and improved to ensure that the silicon cycles stably over hundreds of cycles. And the first step here is the application of protective coatings on the silicon, but also the binder plays a very critical role in facilitating anode cohesion and keeping all the materials together during repeated charge and discharge cycling. So these two components are absolutely critical to stabilize the performance of microsilicon. So out of these three main components, Engitech is very well positioned to potentially deliver on two, which is quite a good spot to be in for us. Now, once you have created this anode containing the silicon active material with the protective coating and the binder, you can very easily transfer this anode into a conventional or commercial fuel cell system against a metal oxide cathode. And the approach that can be used to help out this cell design further is to limit the capacity that you access from the microsilicon. So microsilicon at full lithiation, full capacity utilization, has a capacity of around 3,600 million pounds per gram. Now, if the anode is oversized and the cathode is undersized, you only access a fraction of the silicon, while still being able to access a substantial amount of capacity in the anode. And in the case of a limitation where you limit the capacity to a third, you access about 1,200 million pounds per gram, which is where the future targets of anodes really lie. And this is a system that can be very easily implemented by AnteoTech as well. And this is how we could use our technology to provide solutions into this particular anode segment as well.
Great, thank you. So I guess the message for me anyway is around the two areas that we have a product and our IP that can be applied to this type of solution. But in addition to that, we have a collaborator in our current network that is a large microsilicon provider. So we're in a pretty good position to fulfill the requirements to produce such a solution. Seeing on a slide makes it look so easy, but there's a lot of work to make this program work, and we're looking at that program and how that might be undertaken in the future to see if there's some value for us expanding in this area or not. So that's ongoing work, and obviously we'll make announcements to that end when decisions are made. All right, Alex, that's the last slide that we have. So that is the formal part over, and I think you've got some questions for us.
I do, Derek. Thanks very much, gents, for the presentation. And we've had a number of, quite a significant number of questions come through. And the first one comes from a shareholder. When viewing various presentations, in particular battery development at Tesla, comment has been made about the usage of silicon in production of lithium batteries. Are these advancements similar to Anteo? And does Anteo research have any real relevance in Tesla's development of its high capacity advanced battery that it's recently promoted?
Yeah, great question. I think we just talked about in that last section of the presentation. But the one thing that that we do take away from the Tesla presentation is it's quite interesting, but it's very much a program of future work for them as well. They don't have all the solutions that they need to have to achieve the things that they want to achieve, and so they're on a program of work as well. But I think our IP and technology and capability is aligned to that thinking, certainly in terms of potential direction, and we're a well-established community of lithium-ion battery developers that enable us to have these discussions with various organisations, and we'll do that in course. The technology that's involved is extremely complicated, so it's not an easy program of work to undertake, and it's not easy for them either. So if we continue down the collaboration path, I'm sure that we will find solutions that are aligned to the Tesla vision as well.
So if Anteo was involved in the production of Tesla's new battery, i.e. the new binder that they've announced, which seems very similar to what Anteo has, would there be any requirement for shareholders to be notified prior to contracts being signed? And if not, what would the trigger here be for Anteo to be notified, assuming this falls outside of our existing collaboration agreements?
Well, if we were to sign an agreement with Tesla, that would be a fairly major event for us, and we'd be obliged to inform the market immediately, and we would do. So that's the position. I think the collaboration network that we have in place is connected to the entire lithium-ion battery market. So all the discussions and development we do contributes to solutions that will end up in the final producers and battery makers' hands. So we're part of that community, and a direct relationship with Tesla may not necessarily be the pathway that manifests for us. Maybe it will in the future. We're not too sure, but you know, we are part of a very wide collaboration community that we've built up, and we're developing things that will end up in the battery developers' hands, including Tesla in due course.
Okay, so is AnteoTech involved in the Sun Cable project that plans to build the world's largest battery in Darwin?
The answer to that is directly no. The Sun Cable project is a great project that has a vision of energy storage, and that energy storage mechanism could be a lithium-ion battery, and that lithium-ion battery in the fullness of time could have some Anteo products in it if we develop them the right way, and the way we've portrayed, and we get energy density and efficiency into a lithium-ion product that the Sun Cable project eventually buys. But there's no direct connection between us and the Sun Cable project, simply because we're working on R&D development of the lithium-ion battery, and the Sun Cable project is doing what they're doing in terms of energy development and storage. The two projects may meet in the fullness of time, but not yet.
In the quarterly you released on Friday, you stated that AnteoTech's strategy is to be a material supplier. Considering AnteoTech had so many knockbacks in the life science industry trying to be a material supplier rather than trying to move up the value chain as a component supplier, do you think this remains the most effective strategy?
Yeah, well, I think we've portrayed what our strategy is in terms of commercialization quite well, and we think it's valid. You know, we're in the market now building our component parts, and we're trying to commercialize those as we go and put them into the market in the right hands of the component manufacturers. Take the cross-linker additive as an example. We're working with a number of organizations that have an existing binder, and we've got some great results that will prove fruitful for them and for us. And then from there, it's about how we actually harness the market opportunity. Now, there's several options around that. We could license an organization to use our IP to add to their existing products, or we could actually do a supply deal where we could supply them our products and they can combine into theirs, or we could do an OEM deal such as the ones we've done on life sciences, where we produce the combined product. All of those things are on the table, and how it manifests in its final form is not necessarily known right now, but we'll do in the fullness of time, and so we'll play a part that's appropriate for the market and appropriate for us in terms of our capability to supply and our our need to be involved with the tangible aspects of manufacture.
And in the quarterly, you spoke on collaborators 1, 3, 5, and 8, and you also mentioned it in your presentation there. Can you just confirm that there are still 9 collaborators, and can you expand on where you're at with those other collaborators?
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned, we've got 9 and 9 active ones. The program affected by COVID-19, so we're disappointed around that, but we are working with all those collaborators progressively. We have some results from 1 and 3, both on the binder program, or the cross-linker additive program, and the silicon composite program, and we're using those results to feed into the programs of work with other collaborators. And to that end, we are putting together protocols for that program of work, and we're sending materials around the world. All that process takes some time to set up. So all the collaborators that we're dealing with, we're working with in those types of frames right now. And as I mentioned, we've got a 10th that's in the pipeline, and we hope to bring that organisation on board soon. And that, as I mentioned, was one that came to us. So quite encouraging that after a couple of years of working in the collaboration space, that we've got organisations starting to come to us.
Now, as we all know, the Future Battery Industries CRC announced that AnteoTech partners on their super anode project. I haven't seen this announced by AnteoTech, but can you expand on AnteoTech's involvement in the project?
Yeah, look, the FBI CRC has been around for a while, and we've been in discussion with them. They're obviously keen for us to participate. in that program. We're the only company in Australia focusing on active materials and binders in the anode space. So our involvement in such a program would be quite good for them and quite good for us, frankly. The program has gone through several machinations. It's had 2 or 3 starts, various participants coming into the program, then pulling out, et cetera, et cetera. So we've been working with the FBI CRC through all those different machinations, and we've been with them right from the word go to make sure that we're letting them know that we support this program of work. A start date for the program of work has not been announced yet, and we have not signed the final contracts for that program of work yet. But when we do, if we do, we'll make announcements accordingly. I think the market might have picked up that the FBI CRC themselves have started to advertise our involvement, and that might have been just a tad premature, but to confirm that we are involved, and we will make announcements if and when the program starts up.
Derek, can you give us your best estimate for a timeline to market for AnteoTech's battery materials? Can you talk us through which collaborator or project do you think is most advanced, and what will those batteries be used in, or indeed what will they be used for?
Okay, yep. So that's a really good question. We portrayed in that first slide that we showed today the commercialisation roadmap, and we believe that our near-term commercialisation potential is with the cross-linker additive. And so we targeted the collaborators for that program, very large companies that supply the entire lithium-ion battery market with binders, and therefore the potential for us to add our cross-linker additive to those binders puts us in the market straight away. And we need to go through a development program to prove the effectiveness of the cross-linker additive with that all those individual collaborators' binders. So that is a near-term activity. The results that we showed you today are results that we've got very recently, and it comes on the back of a very, very long and deliberate program of work aligning different attributes of binder and our cross-link additive to get those results. So we're quite proud of the work that we've done over the last 6 months to a year to be able to achieve the results that we're now getting. The results that we have are effective. They're good results, and our collaborator does see that as well. And so there's a potential for us to have some discussions, which we'll undertake very shortly, about how we will leverage that into the marketplace. And so in answer to the question, the timelines could be short for the cross-linker additive, and I think they're longer for obviously for the full anode design and the anode program that we have. And I can't put a timeline on at the moment, and you know, but you know, we've been in this program for a couple of years now. We've made some good progress. So I think we've still got quite a bit of work to do, but we've got opportunities along the way, as I've articulated.
So Derek, what measures have we got in place, or what measures do Anteo have in place that any of our Anteo's battery collaborators are not just learning from Anteo, or Anteo is just teaching them how to get more energy in their batteries free of charge?
You know, that is not happening. It's collaboration, and the collaboration is about our IP. The market will know that we have all our products under patent, and so we are using those products deliberately in a way that improves the energy efficiency of the anode, and we go through the collaboration process to make sure that we can use the products that the market has and apply our IP and our technology to it, prove a result, and then provide it back to the market, and so they can use it to prove the result in their hands. But all our products are protected by patent, and therefore, if a result is useful and can be commercialised, we will get the benefit directly from it. And there's no knowledge transfer other than aligning the processes to achieve a result into the hands of the collaborator so that they can eventually commercialise it. That's the only reason we do the work that we do in the way that we do with collaborators.
Can you give us some guidance on what time frame Antio's collaborators have to commit to a contract and be named after a certain amount of years of work? Or in other words, and simply put, when's Antio going to start making some money out of its battery tech?
Yeah, again, I think we covered that off in the first slide that we portrayed. We're a small organisation with a broad collaboration network doing a lot of different things in our program at the same time. We are focused on the short term. We believe there is a short-term opportunity, and we've articulated that around the cross-linker additive. We've shown the results that we're getting. We're in a collaboration network with organisations that are very large, that have access and sell products directly to the entire lithium-ion battery market, not only the EV portion, but the entire lithium-ion battery market. So the potential for us, if we commercialise, could be quite large. It's about proof points and validation, similar to the life science business. So whatever we achieve in our lab in terms of successful use of our products to lift the energy density of someone else's product needs to be proven in their hands as well. And quite often, because of the technology involved, the process of doing it in our hands and transferring that knowledge and understanding and proof point into their hands can be long. And we've been through several machinations of processes to do this, and we're getting quite good at it now, and therefore we're getting closer and closer to being able to put a solid product in the market that a collaborator is likely to want to take up into their market as well. So we're in good shape, but again, not going to put a timeline on it today.
Derek, can you sort of give us an idea? It's a bit of an interesting one. How well known is Antio's battery technology in the market? For example, would the likes of Tesla be aware of the work that Antio's undertaking?
Yeah, so we're part of a collaboration network, a network of organisations that are working diligently to increase the energy efficiency of the anode. So all those organisations know each other, and so we discuss opportunities and development and progress appropriately without giving away IP with many organisations in the marketplace. And the ones that we have analysed that have articulated their direction into the market are organisations that we've talked to directly and visited where we can on occasion as well. And so, the people at Northvolt and the people in the EV markets in Asia and Tesla are aware of us, and we've had discussions with all those people.
And speaking of Tesla again, how far ahead is AntioTech in terms of energy retention in batteries compared to Tesla at this time and indeed in the future?
Well, we would say we're commensurate with what Tesla can achieve, if not better. In terms of energy retention, we've proven with our silicon composite work that we can achieve a great result, and we've had that validated with collaborators 1 and 3. The challenge for the industry is around cycle stability with active materials, and we're working on that on a number of fronts with our silicon composite program. That's a very good program and quite unique to us that we're proud of. And the next evolution of that program is focused on cycle stability, as Manuel had articulated. So I think we're in good shape there. Tesla and other organisations are going through programs of work to do different things to solve the cycle stability question mark and achieve energy density as well. One of those approaches is the one that we portrayed today around microsilicon. And again, we've got a potential play in that space as well that we're looking at quite closely. So I think, in terms of progression and involvement and, potential to make a useful contribution to the entire market, we're in extremely good shape. But we have work to do, and we have to prove it. We have to prove it in the hands of others as well, and that's primarily what our program of work is about.
With the 21% gain at 100 charging cycles, is there any information on how many cycles the batteries lasted for, and what effects might have been observed at, say, 200 or even 300 cycles?
Sure. Would you be able to comment on that, Manuel?
Yes, of course. So the results that we have shown is a test system that's called a half cell. So it's not a commercial cell. What we demonstrate specifically here is the type of cycle performance, or the binder performance really, that we get from microsilicon in a half cell. And what this means at cycle 100 is that with these 21%, you can power your phone for longer, or you can drive your car for longer, which is quite important. Now, these results really need to be translated into commercial type cells with a metal oxide cathode, which will be part of the work program that we're focusing on internally now, but also what our partners will do and what we will work on with our partners in the next month.
Thanks, Manuel. Now, the quarterly announced, where it talked about 70% microsilicon containing anode. Can you explain exactly what this means and how it relates to silicon content, and put it into context with industry objectives? And I guess further to that, can you talk us through where the industry is currently standing on solving the silicon expansion problem, and where do you stand on that anode form?
Okay, well, I think we've covered a lot of this already, Alex. The 70% containing 70% silicon is 70% of the total content is containing silicon. So so that's that portion of it. Manuel, have you got any other comments that you'd like to make in terms of this question that we haven't already answered?
No, maybe one aspect is that also in looking at our commercialization roadmap is that we are developing different solutions for different problem sets around silicon. And one of them is to develop the silicon composite material with the right amount of porosity and composition to handle expansion at the material level. Another aspect may be in the future to develop protective coatings on microsilicon paired with binders in a limited capacity full cell, again controlling expansion, but in a different way. It's a different approach. So the key takeaway being that we are developing specific solutions for different types of silicon systems, so we can't throw them all into one pot.
Thanks, Manuel. Now, could you also just explain Coulombic efficiency, and where does the industry currently stand with regard to silicon in batteries? And broadly speaking, what are the objectives for silicon?
Okay, Coulombic efficiency, my favorite subject. I'm going to throw that over to you, Manuel.
Yes. So the answer to this question is a little bit similar to my previous answer. Just to maybe define what Coulombic efficiency is first, it is the ratio of total charge extracted from battery or an active material versus the charge put into this active material or anode or battery on one full cycle. So really, the higher the Coulombic efficiency, the more reversible this charge and discharge process is. And for lithium-ion batteries, like for graphite, for example, you get to very, very high Coulombic efficiencies, reaching 99.999% sometimes even. And so for silicon, again, it depends on the type of active material that you're working with. Each active material has different properties. And when you talk about microsilicon or silicon oxide or silicon composites, and so each of them has a different progression of the evolution of this Coulombic efficiency over the initial cycles, which are very critical. This is really where we're focusing on to drive up Coulombic efficiency over the first 5 to 10 cycles to reach in excess of 99% and to get as high as possible. And at this point, it's about maintaining a high level of Coulombic efficiency, so stable cycling performance. And we do address this in different ways using the silicon composite, or a potential new approach being this protective coating on the microsilicon.
Thanks, Manuel. Look, this is the final question that's come through. First, I want to take this opportunity to thank you guys for taking the time to answer these questions from the audience. If a partner wanted to proceed with the AnteoTech cross-linker additive, how hard would it be to integrate that into existing manufacturing processes and tools?
Great question. The answer is relative to the binder in question, but the program that we've undertaken is to work with a collaborator to understand how a crosslinker additive could benefit that particular binder, and then use that work with them and put that combination back into their hands so that they can assess it and make a determination of how they could use it in their hands as well. Have you got any more comments you want to make on that?
Well, maybe just one. So one thing that we did learn from the trials that our partners, collaborators carried out on our crosslinker additives is that they literally had no issue in combining this crosslinker with their slurry preparation or electrode preparation methods. So that all went quite smoothly, which leads us to believe that this can be quite easily transferred to conventional manufacturing processes, which I think is also a very good outcome from this initial set of evaluation studies that our collaborators have carried out over the past few months.
Yeah, and the only other perspective that I would put on that is that the program to assess the effectiveness of the crosslinker additive against a binder has many technical elements to it that need to be assessed, and the efficiency gains need to be proven over a number of different cycles. So the time taken in our hands to make the evidence and the proof that the crosslinker additive works and works effectively is quite an exhaustive process, and quite often that has to be repeated in the hands of the collaborator as well before the value proposition can be agreed and is evident. So that's where the time is taken to do that, and it must be done in that way to make an effective value proposition that leads into a commercial discussion. So we are at that very point now. We have results in our hands that we're going to transfer back to a particular collaborator, and they were the results that we showed you today. So we're quite encouraged by it, and of course we'll make announcements when we need to, when we have some results about how that collaboration is being undertaken.
Thanks, Terry. We've just had one more come through, which I think could be a nice note to sort of leave us on today. Can you just give a brief story of AnteoTech's past success in commercialization of products or IP for any new or potential shareholders who might be on the line?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I've only been with the company for a year, so it's in a bit over a year. It's a bit inappropriate for me to comment on the past. But you know, we've got several aspects of the business that are commercialized. In particular, the raw material business on the life sciences side is a business that's been in existence for quite some time, and so you know that is evidence that we can produce products and make them useful in the marketplace. But more recently, in the last year, we've really started to ramp things up on both sides of the business, and I'd direct the participants to our recent webinar on the life sciences side, where we've brought forward that program of work by 1 full year to produce a COVID-19 antigen test, and that is positioning us very well for a large market that we're working on diligently. And in the on the energy side, I think you know in the last year, Manuel and I deliberately went out to expand the collaboration network from 3 to 9, and we did that very quickly. Only just got it done before the borders shut. And that has proven to be a very effective strategy for us in terms of our commercialization pathway. It has introduced us to a very strong network of participants that are now aware of our products and what we can do. And that pathway will lead us to an outcome. And we're starting to see some fruits of that labour and that effort come through in results, which we're transferring to our collaboration network now. So we're in pretty good shape actually. We're quite pleased with where we are, and next year is going to be an interesting year for us on both sides of the business.
Thanks, Derek. Look, that's all the time we have today. Thank you everyone for joining me. We've had such an outstanding turnout and such a fantastic interest in this sort of webinar. So thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to to join us on the webinar. Thank you also, Derek and Manuel, for presenting and taking the time to answer some questions. Derek and Manuel, before I let you go today, are there any closing comments that you'd like to make?
No, just thank you, and thanks for all the participants today. We really enjoyed presenting both the webinars, and the questions were fantastic. And we do have another session coming up for the AGM in a week or so. So looking forward to that too, and hope you hope people got some benefit out of this. And please, if there's any more questions, please send them through to us, and we enjoy answering those questions, and they really add to the dynamic of our work. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys. As I mentioned before, recording the webinar will be on AnteoTech's website and social media platforms later today. But again, thank you, Derek. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you to everyone else who joined the webinar today. Have a great afternoon, and catch you soon. Thanks very much.